Katya entered into a marital union with a stranger through an arranged agreement, never anticipating that her presence would inadvertently thaw his frigid disposition. Before we proceed, kindly indicate the nation from which you are observing this presentation. We hope you enjoy the narrative. Roman Lebedev occupied his office chair, a piece of supple leather that seemed to engulf him as if he were sinking into a treacherous bog. A persistent ache throbbed within his cranium. Viktor Andreevich, the patriarch of the Lebedev lineage, had stipulated the terms upon which the prosperity of his sprawling enterprise hinged. Marriage was a prerequisite, a demonstration of his suitability. Roman, you must establish a family. His grandfather's voice, resonant with authority and seasoned wisdom, echoed in his recollection. You shall only inherit your portion when you are wed and have maintained this union for a minimum of 1 year. Otherwise, all assets will be directed to charitable causes. Roman winced. While philanthropy was undeniably a noble pursuit, the prospect of matrimony as a condition for securing the business he had diligently cultivated over many years struck him as preposterous. He held no belief in affection or emotional connection. His existence was characterized by transactions, dispassionate analysis, and rigorous self-discipline. Nevertheless, his grandfather remained unwavering in his resolve. For several days he meticulously considered various possibilities, eventually recalling an acquaintance from his past, Katya Smirnova. The empirical evidence was clear: a mountain of debt, ailing maternal relative, and a desperate need for financial relief. She presented as the perfect candidate. He actuated the dialing mechanism of his mobile device, connecting with his executive assistant. Locate Katya Smirnova for me. I require an appointment. Katya was ensconced within a modest, somewhat dilapidated dwelling she shared with her mother. Olga, her mother, reposed on a sofa, her complexion pallid and her demeanor feeble. The accumulated medical expenses escalated daily, and their financial reserves were dwindling with alarming rapidity. Katya subsisted on a series of transient employment opportunities, yet the remuneration barely sufficed for sustenance and pharmaceutical necessities. An unfamiliar voice announced itself as representing Roman Lebedev's executive personnel, extending an invitation to a meeting. Katya. Initially, she suspected a misunderstanding, but her curiosity, coupled with a profound yearning to alleviate her mother's predicament, compelled her to accept the arranged encounter. She found herself standing before an imposing commercial edifice, feeling diminutive and adrift. A severe-looking individual, identified as VM, greeted her. His gaze was glacial and penetrative. He assessed Katya with a discerning look, akin to evaluating a commodity. "Ekaterina," he stated, dispensing with any pleasantries, "I am apprised of your financial difficulties and your mother's ailment." Katya experienced a tremor. How had he acquired this knowledge? "I am extending an offer," Roman continued, seemingly oblivious to her bewilderment. "I shall settle all your mother's outstanding debts and secure for her the most advanced medical care, not in exchange for your marital commitment to me." Katya was stunned. "A union of convenience," Roman clarified. "A contractual term of 1 year, followed by dissolution. No emotional entanglement, no collateral obligations, merely adherence to the stipulated terms." He proffered a substantial document. Katya accepted it with hands that trembled, commencing her perusal of the stipulations. Regular attendance at social functions, the maintenance of a facade of marital bliss, abstinence from intimate associations with other males. "This is preposterous," Katya vocalized, a flush ascending her cheeks. "Perhaps," Roman conceded, "but it represents the sole recourse for your mother's salvation." Katya remained silent, processing his pronouncements. She grasped that this constituted her solitary opportunity for her mother's well-being, not she was prepared to undertake any measure. "I accept," she articulated softly. Roman offered a subtle inclination of his head. "Excellent. Execute the agreement, and we shall commence forthwith." Katya affixed her signature to the contract without completing its full review. A solitary thought consumed her consciousness: the salvation of her mother. She felt akin to a marionette in an elaborate charade. The subsequent days passed in a haze of disorientation. She felt dislocated, as though transported to an alien realm. The day of the ceremony dawned. It was an understated affair. Katya stood beside Roman, attired in an opulent gown far beyond her financial reach. He was striking, possessing an almost sculpted, statuesque bearing, reminiscent of an icicle. They exchanged perfunctory vows. A pang of sorrow pierced Katya's heart. Man, this was not a wedding. It was not a romantic aspiration. There was no affection present, only calculation and stark commercialism. Following the ceremony, Roman escorted her to his palatial residence, a vast, somber structure that more closely resembled a repository of artifacts than a dwelling. Katya felt like an intruder in this setting, insignificant and lost. "This is your new abode," Roman announced, gesturing for her to enter. "It is equipped with all necessities. However, bear the contract in mind. Refrain from unnecessary inquiries. No complaints." Katya inclined her head, hesitant to meet his gaze. She stepped across the threshold, sensing the decisive closure of her former existence. She was now Mrs. Roman Lebedev, a participant in the meticulously orchestrated scheme, and she was obligated to fulfill her role to its conclusion. She entered her designated chamber, an expansive, lavish, yet utterly sterile environment. Katya gravitated to the window, observing the nocturnal panorama of the metropolis. The urban illuminations flickered like distant celestial bodies, yet they failed to penetrate the profound darkness that had settled within her soul. Her thoughts turned to her mother, who, by that juncture, had been admitted to a medical facility. She recalled her mother's smile, her benevolent eyes. She was resolved to endure any hardship for her sake. She would assume the mantle of a contented spouse until the contractual period expired. The initial days within the mansion unfolded with agonizing slowness and a disheartening uniformity. Roman maintained an air of reserve and brevity in his interactions. Their discourse was largely confined to formal exchanges. He departed each morning and returned each evening, actively avoiding any superfluous engagement. Katya felt like a specter in the immense dwelling. She wandered through the various rooms, admiring the artwork and decorative objects, seeking to occupy her time. Before long, Roman deemed it necessary to introduce Katya to the upper echelons of society. He conveyed this information during their morning repast, framing it as a professional engagement. "On Friday evening, we are hosting a reception in honor of a significant associate's anniversary. Your presence is anticipated," he stated, his attention fixed on his mobile device. A chill permeated Katya's being. She had no prior experience with such events and was uncertain of proper comportment. "I have nothing suitable to wear," she murmured. Roman emitted a sigh, setting aside his phone. He regarded her with a flicker of impatience. "The stylist will attend to that. Do not concern yourself." On Friday afternoon, a contingent of stylists and makeup artists arrived at the mansion. They selected a sophisticated midnight blue evening gown for Katya, which artfully accentuated her physique and the hue of her eyes. They styled her hair and applied cosmetics that enhanced her inherent attractiveness. Upon beholding her reflection, Katya found herself unrecognizable. A woman entirely distinct from her usual self stood before her, exuding confidence and sophistication, a veritable socialite. Yet inwardly, she remained the same Katya Smirnova, a young woman from an unassuming background, desperately in need of financial assistance. At the reception, Katya felt profoundly out of her element. She was surrounded by unfamiliar individuals adorned in costly attire, conversing in a dialect she struggled to comprehend. She made a concerted effort to remain in Roman's vicinity, feeling as though she existed within his shadow. Roman, as anticipated, presented Katya to the assembled guests, identifying her as his spouse. His demeanor was cool and detached, yet Katya perceived how his mere presence instilled a degree of self-assurance within her. As various dignitaries mingled, Roman and Katya found themselves momentarily isolated. Abruptly, a hand alighted on her shoulder. Katya turned and observed a gentleman of middle age, a cordial smile gracing his features. "You must be Katya," he remarked. "I am Viktor Lebedev, Roman's grandfather." Katya experienced a brief moment of discomposure, but endeavored to maintain her composure. Her response was exceedingly pleasant. "I trust you find happiness with my grandson," Viktor Lebedev continued. "He possesses considerable capabilities, yet I am aware that at his core he is a good person." "We are endeavoring," Katya replied. Viktor Lebedev smiled warmly. "I extend my best wishes for your success and implore you to remember, love is the paramount element in life." This exchange with Roman's grandfather prompted introspection within Katya. She began to perceive that beneath the veneer of the cold, aloof businessman lay a person susceptible and solitary. She noted Roman's subtle solicitousness, though it was not overtly displayed. She felt his implicit backing and protection. One evening, upon her return from the medical facility where she had visited her mother, Katya felt unwell, her temperature elevated, confining her to her bed. Dasha, the domestic aide, provided her with medication and contacted a physician. Roman was apprised of her indisposition, despite their not being in direct communication. Katya sensed his gaze upon her, but was unable to open her eyes. Presently she felt a gentle touch upon her hand. Roman was holding her palm. This contact imparted a subtle improvement in her condition. When Katya eventually opened her eyes, she observed Roman still at her side, his countenance etched with concern. "How are you feeling?" he inquired. "Better," she whispered. "Thank you for your presence." Roman remained silent for a moment before stating, "There is no need for gratitude. You are my wife. It is my obligation to attend to your well-being." The subsequent day, Katya, having partially recuperated from her malady, descended for breakfast. Roman was already in attendance. He extended his hand and she, with a touch of timidity, accepted it. Together, they proceeded to the dining area for their morning meal. He was unusually communicative, discussing his plans for the day, including professional engagements and negotiation sessions. Katya listened intently, striving to absorb every detail. At a certain juncture, Roman met her gaze and smiled. "You know," he remarked, "your presence is rather agreeable." Katya blushed and lowered her eyes. "Mine too," she responded softly. Following breakfast, Roman proposed a perambulation through the gardens. They strolled along paths adorned with fallen foliage, engaging in a wide-ranging conversation. Katya recounted anecdotes from her childhood, spoke of her mother, and shared her aspirations. Roman listened with unwavering attention, without interruption. Suddenly, Katya paused and turned to face Roman. "Thank you," she expressed, "for all you do for me." Roman met her gaze. "No need for thanks," he replied. "I do it for my own benefit as well." He stepped closer to Katya and tenderly placed a kiss upon her lips. It marked their inaugural authentic embrace, a kiss imbued with tenderness and burgeoning hope. Katya reciprocated his kiss, experiencing a profound sense of love blossoming within her heart. They stood in the garden, enfolded in an embrace, observing the descent of the sun. In that moment, a mutual understanding dawned. Their simulated union was evolving into something more profound, something genuine, and perhaps they had discovered in each other that which they had sought throughout their lives. A venomous serpent of jealousy coiled within Roman's chest, constricting his pride and impeding his respiration. Dmitri, a childhood confidant of Katya's, was the catalyst for this turmoil. He had reappeared in their lives unexpectedly following her relocation to the mansion. He initiated contact via telephone and correspondence and on occasion paid visits to Katya, each instance igniting a simmering irritation within Roman. He found himself surreptitiously eavesdropping on their exchanges, attempting to discern even the faintest intimation of favor in Katya's voice towards Dmitri. He observed the radiance in her eyes when discussing him, reminiscing about shared jests and past narratives, a sight that inflicted unbearable anguish. "He is merely a friend," he reiterated to himself, striving to quell the tempest of emotions. "It is a contractual arrangement, and she is at liberty to associate with whomever she chooses." Yet reason was overridden, conjuring ever more potent justifications for his jealousy. One evening, after a particularly protracted telephone conversation between Katya and Dmitri, Roman's composure fractured. He stormed into the sitting room where she was present and, unable to restrain himself, blurted out, "What are you doing with him?" Katya flinched in surprise and regarded him with bewilderment. "With whom?" "With Dima. We are simply friends, Roman. What has transpired?" "Simply friends," he retorted skeptically. "Then why are you effervescent like a holiday tree?" "Every time he calls?" Katya frowned. "Are you experiencing jealousy?" she inquired, a note of subtle mockery infusing her tone. "Why should I entertain such a notion?" Roman countered, attempting to maintain an unruffled facade. "We have a contract, remember? I merely wish for you to remain cognizant of your obligations." "My obligations are to maintain the appearance of our union in public," she retorted. "Furthermore, your conduct is utterly absurd. You yourself stipulated that nothing untoward could transpire between us. So, what is your objective now?" Roman fell silent, acknowledging the ludicrousness and futility of his jealousy. He was incapable of confessing his burgeoning affection for Katya, nor could he countenance a violation of the contractual terms. Yet witnessing her converse with another individual proved intolerable. Her mother's health was deteriorating, making the preservation of optimism increasingly arduous. She dedicated extended periods to her mother's care at the hospital, striving to mask her apprehension. During these challenging moments, she acutely missed Roman's steadfast support. She sensed a growing proximity between them, a unique connection forming, but harbored a fear of disillusionment, a reluctance to believe that his concern was merely a facet of the charade. One night, returning from the hospital, Katya felt utterly depleted. She sought refuge in Roman's study, hoping to find solace, at the very least, in his presence. He was engrossed in his work at his desk, not immediately noticing her. When he raised his head and saw Katya, his expression softened. "What has occurred?" he inquired, his voice laced with genuine concern. "Mother's condition has worsened," Katya whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I am at a loss." Roman rose from his desk and approached her. He embraced her, drawing her close, and Katya felt a tremor course through her. Within his arms, she found the protection and support she had long yearned for. "Everything will be all right," Roman murmured, stroking her hair. "I will assist. We will surmount this." At that instant, Katya realized that her sentiments for Roman had transcended mere gratitude. She had fallen in love with him, with his strength, his solicitude, his vulnerability, so carefully concealed beneath a mask of cynicism. Roman, in turn, recognized that his feelings for Katya extended beyond the confines of their agreement. He could no longer deny his affection for this kind, earnest young woman who had unexpectedly entered his life and irrevocably altered its trajectory. He confided in his associate, Andre, during one of their infrequent encounters. "I've fallen in love with her," Roman confessed, his gaze fixed upon his glass of whiskey. "I understand this is irrational, given our arrangement, but I'm powerless to resist." Andre raised his eyebrows in astonishment. "You have fallen in love? Impossible. You have consistently asserted that love is a weakness, a detriment to business." "I am aware of my previous pronouncements," Roman stated, "but Katya is distinct. She has inspired me to believe in the existence of love, that it can be authentic." "And what course of action do you intend to pursue?" Andre inquired. "I am uncertain," Roman replied. "My existence is untenable without Katya. Financial gain holds no significance for me if she is absent." While Roman was articulating his affections to his friend, Katya was also experiencing an internal emotional upheaval. She had observed a discernible shift towards greater warmth and attentiveness in Roman's demeanor, a novel and unfamiliar expression dawning in his eyes. She perceived a reciprocal attraction, yet hesitated to fully embrace this revelation. Her apprehension stemmed from the possibility that upon securing his inheritance, he might simply depart, leaving her with a fractured heart. The following morning, she descended for breakfast, feeling drained and hollow. She poured herself a cup of coffee and gazed out the window, her eyes reflecting a palpable anxiety. He took a seat opposite her, the silence between them thick with unspoken emotions, the very atmosphere seemingly heavy with anticipation. I believe we should finalize our divorce, she articulated, and the words seeming to inflict pain with each utterance. Roman shuddered. Divorce? Does she truly intend to depart? Have I jeopardized everything? Why? He inquired, his voice raspy. I can no longer endure this, Katya responded, averting her gaze. I cannot persist in this deception. I cannot feign indifference when in reality... When in reality? What? Roman pressed impatiently, a sense of despair intensifying within his chest. Katya drew a deep, steadying breath. When, in truth, I love you deeply, Roma, and I can conceal it no longer, but I do not wish to burden you. I understand the paramount importance of this inheritance for you. I know you do not love me. Katya's words seemed to stun him. He regarded her in silence, his expression unreadable. You believe I do not love you? He finally inquired, and with a surge of anger rising within him. I am unsure, Katya replied, her voice quivering. He rose abruptly from the table, his eyes blazing. To blazes with this contract, he exclaimed, his voice trembling with a mixture of fury and despair. To blazes with this inheritance. I am prepared to relinquish everything, Katya, solely to be with you. Katya gazed at him, seemingly mesmerized, astonishment and hope evident in her eyes. What are you professing? She whispered. I love you, Katya cried out, her own emotions overwhelming her. I love you more than anything in this world. I am prepared to forfeit all, solely to be by your side. I have no need for wealth, no desire for inheritance. You are all I require. He approached her, gently cupped her face in his hands, and met her gaze. Do you believe me? He asked, his voice filled with trepidation. Katya nodded mutely, tears streaming down her cheeks. Then tell me you love me too, Roman implored, his voice imbued with hope. Katya offered a tearful smile. I love you, she whispered. I love you more than anything in this world. Roman drew her into a tight embrace, as if fearing she might vanish, holding her close and feeling her tears moisten his shirt. I will never let you go, he murmured into her ear. Never. Katya returned his embrace, feeling like the most fortunate woman alive. She loved Roman, and he loved her, and nothing else mattered. They remained thus, entwined for a considerable period, their lives now solely occupied by love. A love without conditions, a love that had triumphed over all obstacles. Viktor Lebedev, leaning on his walking stick, halted in the living room doorway, and as an unintentional observer of the scene unfolding before him, the genuine tears in Katya's eyes and Roman's confession, fraught with despair and devotion, spoke volumes. He had witnessed much in his extensive lifetime, yet this authentic, unadulterated love touched even his hardened heart. A floorboard creaked beneath his foot, drawing the couple's attention. Roman withdrew from Katya, a look of surprise on his face. Viktor entered the room slowly, his gaze gentle, devoid of its customary sternness. I overheard everything, he stated, expecting reprimands, but instead uttered words he had never anticipated. You have demonstrated your capacity for love, that financial gain is not your ultimate priority. I am proud of you, grandson Roman. The tension in the room gradually dissipated. Suspicion flickered in her eyes, and Nadezhda, Katya began, but Viktor interrupted her with a smile. This signifies that the stipulated conditions for receiving your inheritance are no longer in effect. The wealth and the company are yours, Roman, irrespective of your marital choices. And if your choice is this remarkable young woman, then I am only delighted. A profound silence settled over the room, punctuated only by Katya's soft breaths. She still struggled to comprehend the unfolding events. Was this truly the end of the ordeal? The contract, the feigned affection, the legal entanglements, all dissipated without the threat of forfeiture due to unforeseen circumstances. Roman leaned towards his grandfather and embraced him tightly. Thank you, grandfather. You cannot fathom the significance of this to me. Viktor patted him on the shoulder. I am an elder, Roman, and I have come to realize that the most valuable aspects of life are love and family. Cherish them. With these words, he departed the room, leaving Roman and Katya alone. His eyes shone with love. Now, everything is real, Katya. No more contracts, no more conditions. Just us. Over the subsequent days, their lives underwent a transformation. There was no longer any necessity to dissimulate their affections. They could be their true, unvarnished selves. Roman shed the persona of the distant, cynical businessman, emerging as a solicitous and devoted partner, willing to do anything for his beloved Katya. Katya, in turn, flourished. The anxieties of the future receded, replaced by a profound sense of security and contentment in Roman's presence. A week later, Roman took Katya's hand and led her to a jeweler's establishment.
I wish for you to select a ring that genuinely appeals to you, he stated. One that you will wear with pride and affection. One that will serve as a symbol of our true love. Katya appeared perplexed. She had never before considered acquiring such a valuable item for herself. Roma, this is not essential. He interrupted her. This is my gift to you, a symbol of your choice of me and my choice of you. They spent several hours perusing dozens of rings in the establishment. In her quest for the perfect symbol of their commitment, Katya examined numerous designs, yet none resonated with her spirit. Then, as the search neared its conclusion, her gaze fell upon a strikingly understated band, crafted from luminous white gold and adorned with a single modest diamond. "This is it," she breathed, a sense of profound certainty washing over her. "This is precisely the ring." A warm smile spread across Roman's face as he witnessed the radiant sparkle in her eyes, confirming his intuition that this was indeed the ideal selection. Several months later, their heartfelt connection culminated in a grand ceremony, a truly spectacular and joyous celebration of their union. The event was graced by the presence of all their cherished family members and dearest companions, everyone who had championed their enduring affection. Katya, radiant and exuding pure bliss, made her way down the aisle in a pristine white gown. Roman, his gaze brimming with love and awe, awaited her arrival. They solemnly exchanged promises of unwavering devotion. In that profound instant, the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them in existence. Their souls were intrinsically linked, destined to be together, and now, at last, their bond was sealed for eternity. Indeed,